Hello, everyone. This is Nancy O'Neill with That Man Jesus Ministry. I'm excited to be back with you all this evening. I just noticed my necklace was not on. So neither one of them are on today. I'm so used to wearing those. Um, so I had to take a little break to finish up some things for school, but I am back, so you all will be seeing more of me this summer on the live podcast. It's nice to be back. I did miss you all when I was out. So, we were in First Samuel when I took my little 1 week hiatus from the ministry. And I believe we left off at like chapter 10 or 11. So I'm going to fast forward because now I need to play some catch up. I'm going to fast forward to the last two chapters of First Samuel. And just to kind of give you some background, um, King Saul was the first king to be, um, I don't want to say appointed by the prophet Nathaniel. And Saul, he started out great. He had a humble beginning, but then as the longer he was in power, he really started to get the big head. And as a result of that, he started to stray away from God. God would give him specific instructions, and Saul would go and do something else. So, as a result of that, um, God removed Saul from his position of power, but it did not happen right away. And Nathaniel went and anointed uh, King David, who was not king at the time. At the time, and so after that, King David actually went into hiding for 17 years. This was after Goliath, after he married King Saul's daughter, Michal. um, he Saul became jealous of him, and what really set it off is there is a scripture in First Samuel that says, Saul slay his thousands, and King David slay his, or David slay his 10,000s, and after that, it was all over. Saul became his instant enemy because he did not like to be compared to David. So King David was in hiding for about 17 years until Saul died in battle. He and Jonathan, one of his sons, he had three sons, died in battle. And we're going to read about that today, before King David could reign. So unfortunately, King Saul ended in a tragic death. Um, the house, God had told him previously that the house of his rulership would never come to an end. It did come to an end. David and Saul were only related by marriage. So Saul's throne did end abruptly because of disobedience to God. So there's a lesson in that even today. But I'm going to stay on topic today. So let's pick up with First Samuel chapter 30. All right, verse 1. And it came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag and smitten Ziklag and burned it with fire and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, and David. Wait, hold on, don't let me skip a verse. Either small, great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam and Jezreelites, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. Forgive me in advance if I said any of these names incorrectly. And verse 8, and David inquired at the Lord, saying, shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Besor, where those that were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, and 200 abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Besor. And they fought an Egyptian, excuse me, let me start over. Verse 11, and they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David and gave him bread. And he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him. For he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, to whom belongest thou? And whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me, because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon the coast which belonged to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. That was a city. And David said to him, canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, swear unto me by God that thou wilt neither kill me nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from twilight even until the evening of the next day, and there escaped not a man of them save 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither son nor daughters, neither spoil nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the and the herds which they drave before those other cattle, and said, this is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men which were so faint that they would not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor, and they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught to the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then David said, you shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord had given us, who hath preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. And it was so from the day forward that he made it a statute and an ordinance that Israel for Israel unto this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent to the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord, to them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in the south, Ramoth, and to them which were in Jatir, and to them which were in Aroer, and to them which were in Siphmoth, and to them which were in as Temoa, and to them which were in Rachel, and to them which were in the cities of Jerahmeelites, Meelites, and to them which were in the cities of the Canaanites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Chorasan, and to them which were in Aphlek, and to them which were in Hebron, and to them and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to haunt. Okay, on to chapter 31. So I'm reading these last two chapters in First Samuel to show the contrast between how David handled what could have been a tragedy that ended up being a triumph for him versus how Saul handled a situation when he was in battle. So we're going to see a stark contrast how Saul did not inquire of the Lord what he should do when he was fighting those battles. A lot of times he just went in his flesh and he did what he felt was right, based on carnality, his five senses, what he could feel, see, hear, touch, so forth, and smell. So let's take a look at chapter 31 as we wrap this up. Verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled down before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. And the Philistines slew Jonathan, that's one of Saul's sons, and Abinadab and Malchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abused me. For his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his three sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side Jordan saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his three sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor. That means they took off his, his what he was proud of, what he was known for, and they caused him to be in shame, and set into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it to the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. So we see here with Saul that, of course, his ending, his life did not end well. That's got to be a tragedy just for you to lose three of your sons in battle. And Saul was so, shooken up about that, what happened, that he ended up taking his own life. And so did his armor bearer. So things did not end well for Saul. Unfortunately, I don't believe that Jonathan was in the wrong. I'd have to go back and thoroughly look at First Samuel. Jonathan was one of the sons that formed a close bond to David. And as you all know, with royalty and kingsmanship, for lack of a better word, usually the lineage is from the king to the eldest son. I'm not sure if that was Jonathan or not, but Saul had made David, um, he had brought him in as royalty to treat him as his own son when he married his daughter. But, by tradition, one of Saul's sons should have been the next king. And so Saul caused a lot of harm to his own family. And as a result of Saul's disobedience, three of his sons died. One of his daughters, Mikhail, she was barren her entire life because she spoke against King David when he came home carrying the Ark of the Covenant. So there was a lot of tragedy that happened in Saul's family because of his sin. So sometimes, unfortunately, what happens when parents sin is that sometimes that sin, I should say, the results of the sin, it trickles down to the children as well. So, when we either every act of obedience or disobedience, it always has a trickle effect. It's not just about you or me deciding that today we just wake up and we don't really want to do what God tells us to do. We're just going to go out and do our own thing. Well, that has consequences that trickles down to other people. The people that we are in fellowship with, um, family members, people that we're associated with. That sin has a consequence on them. Just as the flip side of that, not to be negative all the time or too much, but the flip side is that when we obey God, there are positive consequences that come from that. Such as walking in the blessing of the Lord. I've read the scripture, Deuteronomy, is it 28? Let me check real quick. It talks about the blessings and curses that come upon us when we choose to obey God and, we choose to disobey God. It's not that God goes around passing curses out to people such as sickness and poverty. It's that the disobedience causes, it's like that shield that God and that protection, that armor that God protects us with. When we sin, just like with Adam and Eve, they lost the glory in the Garden of Eden. That shield that he protects us with, it starts to come down and we open ourselves up to attacks from the enemy or from Satan. So that's what happened here with Saul. So we're going to pick up next time we meet, which will likely be Thursday. We're going to pick up with David, who finds out about this, and that he's just devastated when he gets this news. Because him and Jonathan, there's another verse in First Samuel, I'll have it for you the next time we meet. It talks about how David and Jonathan's hearts were knit together. They were that close. They were almost as close as two blood brothers. So he's going to be greatly affected by this tragedy that happens in his family. And it's like, it's great to become king, but at what expense? Like nobody wants to be, you don't want to get crowned after a circumstance like this, that your best friend is dead, your successor. And not only did David love Jonathan, but David also loved King Saul. Even though Saul, you can kind of say that David's life is like a foreshadowing for Jesus, because Saul actually attempted to kill David multiple times. I have to get you the exact reference, but I want to say 15, 17 times that he attempted to take David's life. And even with David going through all of that, that's why we see like he's so melancholy a lot of times in the Psalms, because I think that some of those songs were probably songs were written while David is, he's fearing for his life. His life was in danger for years as he's running away from Saul. And um he does have the victory in the end. He does die a natural death. But the Bible also says that um that God, excuse me, I got to get back on track. I'm getting a little rusty here. That King David was a man after God's own heart, even though he, slept with Bathsheba, a married woman. He had Uriah killed. Um, but he was repentant, and his consequence for that, the prophet Nathan had told him that your baby is going to die, which is what happened. But after that baby died, the next baby that Bathsheba had was um, Solomon. So that concludes First Samuel. We will pick up again when we meet on Thursday. I don't think I have any um, events to go to Thursday, but I'm off for the summer. So if you don't see me at 7, you'll see me before or after. So I look forward to seeing all of you all at that time. And until Thursday, everybody have a blessed 2 days. Bye bye. I'll be back. I'll be back.